Roll film. Welcome to Courtney on Health, brought to you by MalcolmPresents.com, a new internet platform streaming on MalcolmPresents.com. And you go over to Courtney on Health and you'll see our show. Anyway, welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
And that's Max, do our introduction.
Max will do the intro. Yes, the infamous.
The
infamous. I don't know, in my own mind. Hi, Courtney, and hi,
Hello.
Malcolm. Welcome to Courtney on Health, a podcast, Zoomcast podcast series about how to get through these lingering COVID-19 times with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, a registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area. And as we say, beyond. And will help guide you on a path to wellness and health.
And beyond.
And beyond. It could be wellness, health, and if there's a third thing, we'll find it. So here we go with a quick poem. It's called 1/2 Cup by Linda Bailey. And it was on a shredded wheat cereal box. Go figure. That'll give you clues what we're talking about today. And it says, born to play, born to move, simple goodness, fiber, 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 total fat, 2%, does contain wheat and bran, a flavorful life. It's a little longer than a haiku, but shorter than a poem. So
Exactly.
I don't know, but it has the three words we're talking about: fiber, fiber, fiber in it. So just from a personal note, my mom would have shredded wheat for breakfast a couple of times a week easily. She ate a really healthy diet and lived to 101. I don't know if fiber had to do with it. I don't know.
Maybe. Right?
Maybe she ate really, really well.
Just a little story on fiber. I worked in a hotel in the Catskills that was basically catered to the aged at that time. And this was the only hotel that they announced breakfast was now being served in the main dining room, and stand clear from the doors because everybody would come in. Anyway, I had this one guy, I forget, won't mention his name. Every morning, he took a bowl of whole wheat cereal with prune juice and 5 whole prunes.
Oh, God.
I gave it to him and I'd have to go to the bathroom. Anyway, my story on fiber. Sorry to interrupt you, Max.
Sure. Wow, we're getting fiber. I think we'll ever get to this topic. I'm going to have to go really fast. Anyway, so my mom had the shredded wheat and my brothers went for the sugary stuff. You got Lucky Charms, whatever that comes to mind. However, one healthy cereal that my older brothers would ask for on some rare occasions was Wheaties. The primary reason that they would ask for it was because it was and still remains the breakfast of champions.
That's right.
There were always photos of athletes on the front of the box who excelled in their sport. So eat Wheaties and you will be a champion and a healthy human. Truth be told, my brothers thought it tasted like cardboard, and they'd always add sugar anyway. But I put sliced bananas. My mom said she would, won the round one of the cereal wars because if they ate the Wheaties, it had fiber at least. So, and they had the bananas, so they tolerated it, and the sugar and the sports connection made it, something they would eat sometimes. The American Heart Association recommends we should have between 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. Yet most of us barely get half of that. We average about 15 fiber average per day. I don't know. You're going to have to explain that, Courtney, because there's different things. The health benefits of consuming fiber-rich foods have been known for decades, and high fiber foods may also help people feel full sooner and for longer, which curbs overeating and helps with weight gain. Yeah. So, Courtney, start us off on why fiber is fabulous.
Oh, absolutely. So, once again, ultimately, I'm going to end up talking about, poop, because that's where it leads to with these conversations sometimes. So, Fortunately, we know so much more about the different types of fiber. We've moved a little bit away from, there was a time when people thought just, it really was just prunes and prune juice. And we're going to talk about, where it came from and why people are, migrate towards, prunes. But the good news is fiber tastes a lot better. It's in a lot more foods than you think it is, that are tastier. But we've got a wealth of information that suggests that fiber is going to reduce your risk of overall disease, including diabetes. Why? Because foods that are higher in fiber are better able to control your blood sugar. They blunt that rise in blood sugar that would normally occur in a food that is absent of fiber. And we're going to talk about the two different types of fiber as well. So we know it helps with diabetes. You mentioned it, Maxine. Foods that contain fiber, think about it, it expands in your gut. And that expansion, if you all remember our segment where we talked about filling foods, that expansion helps trigger that satiety. So you end up eating less. So there's a benefit in terms of overall weight management. Used to be decades ago that there were many studies that suggested that a high fiber diet was going to reduce your risk of colon cancer. So since that time, there's been more data to come out, not as strong of a correlation. So there are still studies that say high fiber diets are going to be helpful to reduce colon cancer risk, but there are also studies that are suggesting it's a little bit muddier. There's a little bit more to that picture. So that's why you might hear a little bit of confusion when it comes to fiber intake, high fiber diets, and specifically colon cancer risk. When you open up cancers in general, however, we see that people who eat higher fiber diets tend to have lower risks of a variety of different cancers. Breast cancer, colon cancer is in there as well. So there's something about a higher fiber diet. They don't know exactly what that might be. In all likelihood, it is because it keeps you fuller longer and you might lose weight. And we know that weight loss in and of itself is going to put you at decreased risk for certain cancers. So you can see there's a wide variety of reasons to increase fiber intake, but at least in my experience, the sticky part, the thorny part is getting people to increase fiber because they might not like higher fiber foods. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of fiber. So there's insoluble fiber and there's soluble fiber. So soluble fiber, if you think about it this way, is the fiber that actually dissolves in water or bodily fluids. So I have my, and I'm sorry for my location here. I'm a little displaced. I am doing a little bit of work in my kitchen. So this is a new spot for me. If you think about, for those of you who eat chia seeds, do you guys eat chia seeds at all?
Yeah, I do.
So if you've ever put them in yogurt or if you've made chia pudding and you see what happens to those tiny little seeds in a fluid in a very short amount of time, you see that they absorb that, they get dissolved and they become this gel-like substance. That's exactly what happens inside your body. Okay, so once inside your gut, it forms a gel. In many cases, it absorbs some of the bad cholesterol in your body and helps eliminate that from your body. So that's where, in particular, soluble fiber is helpful in managing cholesterol levels and helping reduce the bad cholesterol, the LDL, when we see diets high in soluble fiber. So what are your other sources of soluble fiber? Think about beans. Think about nuts and seeds like chia seeds, like flax seeds. Think about green peas, oranges. I was just holding an orange before. Apples, Brussels sprouts. There are, that's just a small list, but there's a wide variety of those, predominantly, in fact, it's all fruits, vegetables, and grains that contain that soluble fiber. So one of the big ones, there was this big oat craze, right? Oat bran years ago, where everybody learned that the type of fiber that's in oats is particularly helpful, and it's that soluble fiber. So either in oat-based cereal or oatmeal, oat bran, you can bake with it, you can mix with it, you can, add it to yogurt or to cereals, just to bump up that soluble fiber intake a little bit. So we know that it's going to not only help with cholesterol levels, but it's going to help with digestion, and again, reduce the risk of certain diseases. So those are your soluble fiber sources. On the flip side of that would be your insoluble fibers. And those would be the ones that absorb fluids and water in the body. And once that gets to the gut, it helps increase the bulk of stools and helps make it easier to pass, which is important because what you ultimately want in terms of a nice, healthy gut is a nice, short transit time. And what I mean by that is how quickly your food moves through your body. And you've moved your stools. We know that quicker transit times tend to lead to, first of all, you're more comfortable. That's one of the primary reasons. But we know that it is going to be helpful with diverticular disease and things, in terms of like hemorrhoids. So very helpful in terms of moving the stools out, much more comfortable by that increased bulk that's created with the insoluble.
Is that known easy come, easy go?
What's that?
Is that easy come, easy go?
I have a question on digestibility.
Yeah.
Is fiber less digestible? Could it give you issues in that respect somehow?
Fiber, the beauty of fiber is it is not digested at all, which may sound initially like, why is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
It moves through your intestinal tract completely intact. So I'm not going to get super gross here about, how does one know that? I won't go there because probably some people are eating. But the reality is that is how it is beneficial. Because when it ends up in the intestine and then ultimately in the colon, by being intact like that, it becomes food, okay, to create healthy gut bacteria. So remember, the healthy bacteria in your gut need to eat too. So what are they eating? They're eating that intact source of both soluble and insoluble fiber inside the gut. So, and then the other side of that means there are no calories to it. So although it is a nutrient, contains no calories whatsoever, but by being calorie free and an incredible filling agent and a bulking agent, it becomes a fabulous tool to help with reducing risk of chronic diseases. And as we mentioned, to help with weight management.
That's really, it's a lot of really positive things for fiber. I know also it works. I think you said a little bit about blood glucose and insulin and how does that work? And then someone asked me this morning, because I said I was working on something about fiber, and they asked me if you knew something called misery bread. Is that something you know about?
Bread?
I do not know misery bread, but they may want to think about changing that name.
Well, it's kind of funny, but that's the name of it. And it's cholesterol free and it's supposed to have good things in it. And apparently, it's something that's out there. I don't know. We have to look it up. I have to Google it. I don't know. I don't know. It's have to Google misery bread.
Yes.
What a name.
Here's the thing. So before I leave, let's talk a little bit about insoluble fiber sources, right? So those would be wheat, like things that are 100% whole wheat flour, whole bran, leafy vegetables, green leafy vegetables, broccoli, many of the cruciferous vegetables, berries. So I just happen to have here, blackberries here, but blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries are very, very high in that insoluble fiber. So one thing to keep in mind, so yes, we know that fiber on its own is helpful, but what we're unable to really tease out is it just the fiber, or is it the fact that the fiber is in foods that are packed with antioxidants, flavonoids, carotenoids, polyphenols, plant chemicals that we know from decades worth of research are very, very helpful with reducing overall disease risk. So they're usually housed, unless you're taking a fiber supplement, fiber is usually housed in foods that are very, very healthful and tend to be very low in calories. Now, obviously, you can have a bran muffin, for example, that is very high in fiber, but because it may contain a lot of sugar, sweeteners, and just the nature of the weight of it may be very high in calories. So there are always exceptions to the rule, but generally your higher fiber foods are going to be foods that are very, very nutritious. We consider them nutrient dense. So things like this happens to be a great, I love Triscuit whole wheat crackers. They're not the only game in town, but it's usually very basic ingredients. What you're looking for is something that's about 2.5 grams of fiber per serving. That's considered a good source of fiber. Even better would be 5 grams of fiber per serving.
Yeah, Courtney, let me interrupt you for a minute. I got a bulletin on misery bread. It's called
Okay.
pani kunzeltu. A seasoned bread is a typical poor meal of traditional Sicilian cuisine. It is also called bread of misery because lacking of any further richer or appetizing ingredients, poor people used to enrich it with spices and cheap seasonings, easily accessible.
Wow, I see.
So what is it made of? I mean, what's the primary ingredient? I wonder. Misery bread. I don't know. It's something we gotta.
It goes into your Italian background.
I know. See, I feel a little embarrassed now that I don't know. Although it's only one half of my family is a Sicilian.
Oh, okay.
The other half.
Well,
But one of my favorite cereals, and I have to compare it with this misery bread in terms of grams of fiber per serving, is something called Uncle Sam's flaxseed cereal. Are either one of you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Sounds familiar, but I have not ever tried it, I don't think.
It is fabulous. It's a great, I like it. I think it's fabulous. Of course, everybody has their personal preferences, but here's the word of caution I have for anybody who's either trying Uncle Sam's flaxseed cereal or you're really trying to bump up your fiber intake. You are right, Maxine. Americans have a woefully low intake of fiber. I've heard as low as 12 grams. 15 actually is a little bit higher than what I've heard. And like you said, we should really be between 25 and roughly 35 grams of fiber per day, 25 for maybe women, 35 for men, in that range. So we have a long way to go in terms of improvement. At least in my experience and what we know from research of people trying to increase fiber intake, what ends up being the problem is too much, too soon. Your gut needs a little bit of time, a little bit of a ramp up period in order to get used to that level of fiber. We mentioned just a few minutes ago that it moves through your intestinal tract completely intact. Okay, it's going to create a little bit of bloating. You got to give it some time. Remember the fluid adjustments, one absorbs and one dissolves into fluid. So you must go slowly. So do not pick, let's say tomorrow is, the day you're going to try and increase fiber intake. Don't have a bowl of Uncle Sam's flaxseed cereal, as much as I love it, but it is 10 grams of fiber per serving, which is massive. Don't start with that and then have a ginormous Brussels sprout salad for lunch with some tuna on it, and then lead into a farro salad with grilled chicken or tofu in the evening. You're going to explode by the end of the day, and you're going to be miserable. And anybody around you will also be miserable for obvious reasons. So take it a day at a time. Pick one meal to incorporate some of these higher fiber foods and go slowly. Particularly with seeds, they're wonderful. Seeds are a great source of both soluble and insoluble fiber, but you want to add a little bit at a time. If you're trying chia seed, okay, I think a serving size is 3 tablespoons. Don't do the 3 tablespoons all at once. Maybe add a couple of teaspoons at once into your yogurt or into your cereal or however you're using it, and then gradually build up from there. So that you give your body time to get used to it, keeping in mind that fiber it's wonderful for your plumbing, absolutely amazing for your plumbing, but you got to baby it a little bit to give your body a chance to get used to it.
I have, hold on, I have ingredients for the misery bread.
All right,
You
here we
ready?
go.
You ready?
Yep.
Well, it's how to bake it, but it's I won't give all that, but it's sunflower seeds, flax seeds, hazelnuts or almonds, rolled oats, chia seeds, psyllium seed husks, one that was salt and whatever, coconut or ghee, and water. So
I-
I sent this to you, but this is
Okay.
this is a misery because it's a poor. How much would it cost to make this bread today? This is
I
poor man's
know.
bread. This is
I-
not poor man's
seriously.
bread. Just like what?
And is the
Uh,
misery because I'm getting stuck on the misery part because to me that sounds quite yummy. But what's the misery part? Like if you, and I don't know. Like
I don't know. I mean, this
we
is
need input. Anybody out there who's heard of misery
we
bread?
need
Come
the
on.
info on misery bread. Everybody, come on.
Well,
We need
probably they said it was the bread that the poor people ate.
that's
So
quite some. That's
I
quite
guess
some
if they had no money, they were miserable.
miserable that, but they had all this good stuff. What are you talking about? It's just
Um,
I don't know.
I will say a bread that sounds very similar to that. I've done a post before on it. If you guys, Dave's bread,
Right.
the killer bread, Dave's killer
Dave's
bread,
killer. See, we have killer bread and misery bread.
misery bread. I
What
know.
what is
So,
this?
I know it's really great. It has a lot of seeds and things like that, and it goes slowly with it, one slice at a time. It's a great bread. I mean, there's lots of options out there for you, but keep in mind, what tastes good to you. Do be mindful of the calories because you don't want to end up, just from your bread alone, throwing back, 400 calories just in your bread because each slice is coming close to like, 190 calories a slice. So do be a little mindful of that, particularly if you're trying to, manage your weight, lose some weight.
Going back to healthful cereals, my favorite is grape nuts.
Yeah,
I know
we
you
know
mentioned it.
you
Talked about it.
you should do a commercial for them.
I should.
They
Anyone
should be a
that's
sponsor.
and right, grape nuts. If you want to be a sponsor, you're more than welcome to come aboard, or I can do.
Or Uncle Sam's. Big
Uncle
fan of Uncle
Sam's. What do you got on your hand there?
I would have gotten you. So I just want to do, a lot of people, I don't know if either one of you use chia seed or flaxseed. And I thought it would be worth mentioning sort of the pros and the cons of each of these. They're both obviously good sources of the soluble fiber that we mentioned before, and there's some insoluble in there as well. They're both very easily accessible in grocery stores now. It used to be you could only find them in quote unquote, health food stores. But the usability of one versus the other may be something that's a sticking point for listeners. So certainly flaxseed is going to be less expensive. I will say it's not as, it used to be chia seed versus flaxseed. The price difference was huge. Chia seed being much more expensive. So now, but still flaxseed is a little bit less expensive. The issue with flaxseed, you may or may not know, is that to really get the best benefits of it, it has to be ground. Now, most people throw it in a smoothie or in a, so they're blending it. Your teeth will obviously crush it as well. But to really reap all of the benefits, it should be ground down. I do recommend, however, that you buy it whole and grind it yourself because you don't know how long ground flax has been sitting on the shelves in the store. And once it's been ground, like any source of fat, it can go rancid pretty quickly. So you want it as fresh as possible. So try and grind it yourself, but know that if it goes in a blender, that takes care of it. It's going to be ground in the blender. Chia seed, on the flip side, again, a little bit more expensive, requires no grinding. Okay, it can be consumed as is, so it makes it super, super easy to add to your recipes and just throw it in and go. One of the best ways is either in some kind of yogurt. You can make, lots of people make their own like chia pudding, and they can use either cow's milk or one of the plant-based milks, and you add things like vanilla and a little bit of seasoning, and overnight it gels like we mentioned. So great seed options. I just thought it would be helpful to know the differences and what to look for when you are buying them.
In terms of eating of juices versus the actual veggies or fruits, what nutrition, is there a difference in nutritional value between eating the actual fruit versus putting it in a juice press, and do you lose any nutrition in the juice aspect?
Yeah, so fresh fruit always best. Why? You're getting the whole fruit and both the soluble and insoluble fiber that it contains. Typically, when you are juicing, so there's two types of juicing. You're either throwing the whole fruit in there, skin and all, and in some cases, seeds and all, and in which case you are retaining a lot of the fiber that's in there. So that's one way. Unfortunately, some of the other juicing methods extracts a lot of that pulp and the fiber out of it. So what you're left with, I mean, it's still, you still have the juice and you're getting, some of the vitamins and minerals in there, certainly, but you are not getting any of that fiber. So be mindful of that in terms of how you are juicing or using extractors. You want that fiber in there, which is why, the whole processed down or the whole fruit is your better option.
Yeah, the dried fruit, does that have as much nutrition as like dried prunes or dried not prunes, dried apricot, which I
Yeah,
love.
sure. So I think dried fruit is a great, when we talk about our travel snacks, it's absolutely going to be in my, sort of armamentarium of things you should have around. Dried fruit is as nutritious. It's very high in fiber because it's concentrated. It's actually, and it ends up being a great source of iron as well. The problem with dried fruit for a lot of people is that the moisture has been removed from it. And sometimes they get into a little bit of trouble and they eat too much. So why is that problematic? Problematic because it might be too many calories that you're pulling in. And come back to that fiber again. It's kind of easy to throw back a ton of apricots, dried apricots. They're delicious, they're sweet, but that's a big fiber load for one sitting. And you may get that distension and bloating and that uncomfortable feeling that we mentioned before. Interesting thing about prunes, most people, it's I feel like it's the roughage fruit that everybody's talked about for decades. So yes, it does have fiber in it, but it is really more of the naturally occurring sorbitol that exists in prunes that makes it a laxative and the constipation fighter that it is. So it's a combination of both, but more than likely the sorbitol content that's in there.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah, what's fun is I remember as a kid, my mother always was talking about regularity.
Yep.
In fact, my cousins still still tease me if I'll call them up. They'll say, "Malcolm, did you go to the bathroom yet?"
Oh God, are you kidding
She
me?
always did that
boy.
in the morning.
TMI, Malcolm. TMI.
We don't need that. We don't need to
Right, but the
know.
thing is,
that
in reading about seniors, that is one of the most important things to keep a senior person healthy. Regular movements, regular.
Absolutely. And there's
I
lots of
mean,
things
people
that can
laugh about it.
that, and they also don't drink as much. So while we're on that, it's super important. First of all, it's important to stay hydrated always. But in particular, if you're adding that fiber, remember we said one dissolves and one pulls. So if you've got a diet that's high in insoluble fiber and it's pulling moisture out, you must replenish that moisture. So it's super important that you really drink lots of fluids, preferably low calorie fluids, in order to combat that extra insoluble fiber and fiber that you're pulling on board. Otherwise, it's going to back you up instead of clearing the plumbing. If you know what I mean.
Well, they say the older you're getting, the more hydration you need as you get older.
Yeah, well, your thirst mechanism is a little bit off when you get older, so you don't really realize you're thirsty is part of the problem. You're not, sometimes, not always, but seniors sometimes tend to move less. So if they're moving less, they're not drinking enough, and they're having problem maybe with dentition. A lot of times, if you think about people who are older, well, maybe they have missing teeth, maybe they have dentures and their teeth hurt. So they're not going to eat those foods that might be typically high in fiber that actually would be beneficial for them. So there's a few things going on there.
Yeah, they say that a lot of the when seniors get dizzy and faint and fall, a lot of it is because of dehydration, because you don't realize, your thirst mechanism is not there, and they only drink when they're thirsty. But they shouldn't. They should drink to hydrate even if they're not thirsty.
right. That's very important.
But anyway, guys, now that we covered that, and of course I spoke about the unspeakable, it's time to leave.
Well, anytime we somehow this show hits poop a lot.
We do. I told you, I warned you guys, it always seems to come back to it
It's a
all the
thing.
time.
It's a thing that, you know, at this point, it's, well, anyway, anyhow.
Well, we're teaching people to live a good life, and being a good life is being healthy. And to be
Right.
healthy, you got to poop.
You gotta be on the throne.
Move
Yeah,
it.
we should do a book on pooping and sex.
Okay,
Oh,
stop.
gosh. Close us
Just-
out, Maxine. Bring
No,
that-
I'm stop. This is being stopped right here and now, folks. I'm gonna do the outro before this
There
gets a
we go.
little crazy.
We'll see what it is.
Anyway, well, thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, which is Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness, and visit her website, CourtneyGravenese.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. Courtney on Health, Smart Sound Nutrition, Strong Safe Fitness. We'll catch you again next time.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
great week.